Nicole Kidman had always been the image of grace, poise, and perfection. An Oscar-winning actress whose very presence commanded respect and admiration. She walked through life with an elegance few could rival. But behind the red carpets, the sparkling smiles at premieres, and the glitz of Hollywood parties, a storm was brewing. One that would shake her world to its very core. Imagine learning, in the quiet of your own home, that the person you trusted most, the person you had pledged your life to, was hiding secrets so profound that they could shatter the very foundation of your marriage. That is allegedly what happened to Nicole Kidman. A private moment, an arrest, and a discovery would converge in a way that left the Oscar-winning star reeling, questioning everything she thought she knew about her life and the man she married. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. On September 29th, the world learned of Nicole Kidman's separation from her husband, Keith Urban. A headline flashed across screens worldwide. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban split after years of marriage. But what the public did not immediately know, what tabloids would only later hint at, was the deeper, darker story behind this separation. This was not a simple divorce, a mutual decision made calmly in boardrooms or private attorneys' offices. This was a divorce born from alleged betrayal, hidden messages, and a double life that Keith Urban was reportedly living without Nicole's knowledge. The couple had married in 2006, uniting two powerful figures in entertainment. Nicole, the refined and revered actress, and Keith, the country music superstar with a voice that had won hearts across continents. For 17 years, they navigated the highs and lows of fame, raising two daughters together, now 17 and 14, all while maintaining a carefully curated public image of love, devotion, and stability. On the surface, their marriage was enviable. The Hollywood elite looked to them as a model couple, supportive, glamorous, untouchable. But as the saying goes, appearances can be deceiving. It was a day that seemed ordinary, a day that would change everything. An arrest, a legal procedure that, on the surface, might seem routine, became the catalyst for revelations Nicole had never anticipated. What was meant to be a procedural moment instead became a window into a life she didn't know existed. According to sources, this arrest allegedly exposed a hidden side of Keith Urban, a private existence populated with secret communications, questionable associations, and behaviors that Nicole never imagined her husband capable of. Suddenly, the life she thought she knew, the man she thought she married, seemed like a stranger. What kind of double life could a man like Keith Urban possibly be living? Not every scandal involves physical infidelity. Sometimes, betrayal comes in subtler forms. Emotional affairs, secret messaging, hidden social accounts. These are the weapons of quiet destruction. And it is alleged that Keith maintained precisely such behaviors. Private conversations with multiple women, flirtatious texts, long-distance emotional bonds. Things that might not leave a physical mark, but cut deeply into the heart of trust and loyalty. Nicole reportedly felt profoundly betrayed, not just by the existence of these communications, but by the realization that the man she shared her life with had been living a parallel existence, one that she was entirely unaware of. It is worth pausing for a moment to imagine the weight of such a discovery. A marriage spanning 17 years, two children whose world is intimately entwined with both parents, and a life lived under the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. For Nicole, every private smile, every intimate conversation, every moment she believed in the security of her marriage was now called into question. Could she trust the laughter at dinner? The shared holidays? The whispered I love yous? The very fabric of her domestic life was unraveling before her eyes. The divorce filing itself came swiftly, almost immediately after the separation was announced. On September 30th, just a day after news of their split reached the public, Nicole Kidman filed for divorce in Nashville. The speed of the filing sent shockwaves through Hollywood. It was not a slow, contemplative decision. It was decisive, urgent, a response to something far more urgent than mere marital dissatisfaction. The move underscored the severity of the situation, hinting to the world that there was more to this story than met the eye. Sources would later describe Nicole as feeling very betrayed, a statement that barely scratches the surface of the emotional turmoil she was allegedly navigating. In the midst of this, one cannot overlook the unique challenges of fame. Nicole and Keith are not ordinary people. Their lives are magnified, every action scrutinized, every private conversation potentially made public. Navigating betrayal under such conditions is unimaginable for most. Yet, even under the relentless glare of media and public fascination, the personal impact is profound. It is one thing to suffer a private heartbreak. It is another to suffer it on a stage watched by millions, where every friend, fan, and critic forms an opinion in real time. And yet, even with all the glitz, all the wealth, and all the influence in the world, the fundamentals remain unchanged. Betrayal cuts the same, no matter the setting. Emotional pain does not discriminate. The questions Nicole faced in those moments were universal. How well do we know the people we love? Can trust survive deception? And when the life you believed in turns out to be built on a foundation of secrets, how do you pick up the pieces? This introduction is not merely a recap of events. It is the opening of a story that will unfold in layers, each revelation more shocking than the last. In the chapters that follow, we will delve into the alleged double life of Keith Urban, exploring the private messages, hidden connections, and emotional betrayals that purportedly led Nicole Kidman to take decisive action. We will examine the arrest that acted as a catalyst, the familial consequences, and the media frenzy that surrounded the couple during this turbulent period. And as we navigate this story, one question looms larger than all others. How could a life built together for nearly 2 decades be shadowed by secrets so profound? How did the man who appeared so devoted, so loving, hide a reality that, once discovered, would force Nicole to make the most difficult decision of her life? But what she uncovered during that arrest, that single, fateful day, was just the beginning. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. Could a marriage that seemed so perfect be hiding cracks no one saw? From the outside, Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban appeared untouchable. Hollywood's golden couple. Oscar-winning elegance paired with country music stardom. They smiled for the cameras, held hands on red carpets, shared glimpses of family life on social media, and even navigated their careers in ways that made them seem like a true power couple. But sometimes, appearances are the most dangerous illusions. To the world, Nicole and Keith were a blueprint for marital success. They attended charity galas together, cheered for each other's award wins, and presented a united front at premieres and public events. Their daughters, now 17 and 14, were often seen at family-friendly events, their presence reinforcing the image of domestic bliss. Fans idolized them. Media outlets praised the marriage as one built on mutual respect, shared ambition, and a love that had stood the test of Hollywood's relentless scrutiny. But what about behind closed doors? Every public image has its counterpart, private reality. Even the most meticulous PR campaigns cannot conceal the complexities, the arguments, the silences, and, sometimes, the secrets. Those closest to Nicole and Keith reportedly noticed subtle tensions over the years, moments that seemed minor at the time, but which, in hindsight, may have been early indicators of a deeper divide. Small hints of dissatisfaction, fleeting disagreements, private frustrations that never reached the cameras, and private moments that contradicted the polished public image. Nicole, a consummate professional, managed to navigate these moments with grace. She had built a career on control, discipline, and the ability to maintain composure in the most chaotic of circumstances. Keith, equally accomplished in his musical domain, thrived on performance, on public perception, on the connection he had with his audience. Together, they seemed unstoppable. But behind the glamour, the marriage reportedly faced its own pressures. Long stretches apart due to touring and filming, the demands of fame, and the emotional strain of maintaining a picture-perfect life under constant observation. Did anyone suspect what was brewing beneath the surface? Friends and associates, when asked, often cited the couple's ability to handle their lives discreetly, to maintain appearances regardless of tension. They laughed at the suggestion that anything serious could be wrong. And yet, the seeds of disillusionment were quietly taking root. Imagine being married for 17 years, yet slowly discovering that the life you share with someone is only partially real, only partially shared. Every laugh at a gala, every whispered conversation on the red carpet, could now be interpreted through the lens of betrayal. The pressures of fame cannot be underestimated. When every move is scrutinized, every smile analyzed, and every gesture photographed, the tension in a marriage can be magnified exponentially. Could Nicole and Keith have sensed something off, even before the alleged double life was revealed? Perhaps. Perhaps not. Some insiders say Nicole had noticed minor oddities. Unexplained absences, fleeting glances at phones, occasional defensiveness over private matters. Individually, these could be dismissed. Cumulatively, they paint a different picture. A picture of a marriage under strain, a relationship being tested by circumstances and secrets alike. Public appearances often masked private reality. At award shows, Nicole glowed in designer gowns, her presence commanding attention, her demeanor poised and graceful. Keith performed with his signature charm, captivating audiences with energy, charisma, and voice. Yet behind the velvet curtains of Hollywood events, whispers suggest there were disagreements, unspoken tensions, and unacknowledged frustrations. It's the duality of public life and private truth. How the smiles and photographs can be a shield for hidden turmoil. How does a couple survive in such a high-stakes environment? The answer is complicated. For some, love and commitment can withstand the strain. For others, cracks, however small, can widen into chasms when combined with secrecy or betrayal. Nicole and Keith appeared to balance this precariously, maintaining an image of harmony while navigating the challenges inherent in high-profile marriages. Yet even the strongest facades can crumble when confronted with truths previously hidden. Imagine Nicole, at home one evening, reflecting on the years she had spent building a life with Keith. The shared milestones, the wedding in 2006, birthdays celebrated, the birth of their two daughters, 17 and 14, each moment seemingly reinforcing the bond between them. Yet in a single moment, an event, an arrest, would allegedly unveil a side of her husband she never knew existed. Suddenly, all of those years, all of those memories, could be called into question. Every shared smile, every word of affection, every tender gesture might be reinterpreted under the shadow of betrayal. It raises the question, how well can anyone truly know another person? Can someone you've loved for nearly 2 decades harbor a life you cannot even imagine? For Nicole, the answer allegedly came in a wave of revelations that left her reeling, questioning not only her husband, but also her own perceptions, judgments, and assumptions. The couple's long-term friends and associates reportedly noticed a change in Nicole's demeanor in the days following the separation announcement, a shift from composed and serene to guarded and intensely introspective. The tension between public image and private reality is a classic hallmark of high-profile relationships. Every smile on a magazine cover can mask frustration, every hand held in public can conceal doubt, every shared family photo can hide emotional distance. Nicole and Keith's marriage, from the outside, exemplified perfection. But perfection, as it turns out, can be deceiving. For years, the narrative presented to the world was one of love, respect, and mutual support. Behind closed doors, however, the alleged double life, the secret communications, and the hidden relationships reportedly told a very different story. Could anyone have predicted this outcome? Perhaps some signs were there, subtle and easy to dismiss. Perhaps the pressures of fame, the demands of their respective careers, and the complexities of managing a public life masked deeper issues. But when the arrest occurred and the alleged revelations came to light, those minor anomalies allegedly transformed into undeniable truths. The man Nicole had married, the man she had trusted for nearly 2 decades, appeared not to be entirely the person she thought she knew. And that is the paradox of trust and familiarity. The closer we think we are to someone, the more shocking it is when secrets are revealed. The very foundation of intimacy, shared experiences, mutual understanding, emotional investment, can amplify the pain of betrayal. Nicole's life, carefully constructed and meticulously managed, suddenly seemed fragile. Every public accolade, every professional triumph, every moment of personal joy was now tinged with the question, what else had been hidden? In the world of celebrity, such revelations are magnified, scrutinized, and dissected endlessly. Yet for Nicole, the stakes were far more personal than public commentary. The emotional gravity of the alleged betrayal, the disruption of family life, and the challenge of protecting her daughters from the fallout combined to create a storm no fame or fortune could shield her from. Friends say that the moment of realization, the moment she allegedly understood the extent of the secrets, was devastating. Trust, once shattered, is not easily rebuilt. And so, the perfect marriage, at least as it appeared to the world, began to unravel. The years of careful curation, the smiles, the awards, the milestones, they now coexisted with doubt, suspicion, and the heavy burden of alleged betrayal. Nicole Kidman, the woman admired by millions for her poise and strength, was faced with a private reckoning. How to reconcile the public narrative of her life with the private truths she was only just beginning to comprehend. But even as this chapter of doubt and disbelief unfolded, the story was far from over. What Nicole would uncover next, the specific details, the secret messages, and the hidden relationships, would push her into uncharted territory. And the question remained, how deep did Keith Urban's alleged double life really go? And could any marriage survive such revelations? The perfect marriage, it seemed, was perfect only in appearance. But what came next would reveal secrets more shocking than anyone could have imagined, and no one saw it coming. It wasn't gossip, speculation, or idle rumors that brought Nicole Kidman face to face with the truth. It was an arrest. A moment that, on paper, might have seemed procedural, mundane even, became the catalyst for revelations that would allegedly upend her entire marriage. Imagine the shock. One day you are living a life of apparent normalcy. The next, a legal incident uncovers secrets so profound they call into question everything you thought you knew about your partner. The arrest itself, though public details remain scarce, reportedly involved circumstances that caught Nicole completely off guard. Friends close to the couple describe it as a moment of disbelief. Nicole, accustomed to navigating the spotlight and the scrutiny that comes with it, suddenly faced a scenario far more personal than any headline could capture. The arrest allegedly acted as a prism, refracting Keith Urban's life into facets she had never seen. At first glance, arrests are public records, procedural matters handled by the justice system. But for Nicole, this was anything but ordinary. The event allegedly exposed inconsistencies, raised questions, and hinted at a hidden life Keith had maintained for years. Private messages, unusual associates, late-night interactions, things that had gone unnoticed or dismissed as trivial suddenly gained alarming significance. It is said that this is when the cracks that had been quietly forming for years became impossible to ignore. Nicole's reaction, according to sources, was a mix of disbelief, shock, and immediate concern. Imagine realizing that the person you trusted implicitly, whose life was intertwined with yours, had been living a reality you couldn't have anticipated. Every detail of their shared life, the vacations, the milestones, the private jokes, was suddenly cast in a different light. Could someone truly live a double life for years without detection? How could 17 years of marriage hide secrets so consequential? These questions likely raced through Nicole's mind in those early hours after the incident. The timing of the arrest was pivotal. Occurring in Nashville, the city closely tied to Keith's professional identity, it also became a private crucible for Nicole. While the public might have only seen news flashes and headlines, Nicole's perspective was deeply personal. It was here, amid the procedural formalities of the legal system, that she allegedly began to uncover the reality of Keith's private communications and clandestine activities. What the arrest revealed may not have been apparent to the authorities. It was the private implications, the hidden truths, that mattered most to Nicole. Emotional fallout in such circumstances is complex. For Nicole, the alleged revelations reportedly triggered a wave of introspection and grief. The shock of discovering a double life, something emotional, something covert, can be more jarring than physical betrayal because it erodes trust at its core. Friends close to Nicole reportedly describe her as feeling blindsided. The man she had built a life with, celebrated milestones with, and raised children with now seemed partially unknown to her. Every interaction, every conversation suddenly carried the weight of potential deception. The arrest also created a chain reaction in the couple's personal and professional life. Private interactions, once ordinary, were now scrutinized. Conversations with friends and family took on new significance. Reports indicate that Nicole began piecing together seemingly minor incidents over the years that, in retrospect, suggested hidden communications or unexplained absences. A flirtatious text, a late-night call, or a shadowed social media account. All of these small fragments reportedly began to coalesce into a troubling picture. Consider the emotional stakes. Nicole, an Oscar-winning actress celebrated for her composure, found herself navigating the dual realities of public scrutiny and private betrayal. How does someone maintain poise when confronted with evidence suggesting that a spouse has been living a life separate from the marriage? Friends say Nicole struggled with this duality, balancing the need to protect her children, manage public perception, and come to terms with personal betrayal. Every moment became a test of resilience, of endurance, and of her ability to process shock under immense pressure. The implications for the marriage were immediate. According to sources, Nicole made rapid decisions following the arrest, including consulting legal counsel and considering steps that would protect her family and her emotional well-being. What might have been a drawn-out process in a typical marriage became accelerated due to the magnitude of the alleged revelations. By the next day, on September 30th, she had reportedly filed for divorce in Nashville, signaling not only the end of a marital chapter, but also a decisive response to the betrayal she allegedly discovered. It is important to understand the layers of this alleged double life. Reports suggest it involved more than physical encounters. It was the emotional, the secretive, the ongoing private communications that hurt the most. While some might argue that a marriage can survive emotional connections outside of the partnership, for Nicole, it reportedly represented a fundamental breach of trust. The discovery during the arrest allegedly illuminated this reality in a stark and undeniable way. Even in the midst of public scrutiny, friends and associates claim Nicole remained focused on her family. Her daughters, 17 and 14, were reportedly at the center of her considerations as she navigated the implications of the arrest and the emerging truths about Keith's private behaviors. How does one shield teenagers from the fallout of betrayal while also processing the personal impact of deception? This is a question that Nicole allegedly faced with determination, even as her own emotional stability was tested to the limit. The arrest, therefore, functioned as both a legal and emotional pivot. It was a moment where the public and private collided, exposing a side of life that Nicole had never imagined. What had seemed like a routine or procedural event became a lens through which her entire marriage was reevaluated. And as she allegedly began to connect the dots, the private messages, the hidden social accounts, the emotional entanglements, the magnitude of the betrayal became clear. How does a marriage survive such a revelation? Can trust be rebuilt when the foundation has been questioned so profoundly? Friends indicate that for Nicole, the immediate response was clarity, a recognition that the relationship as she had known it was no longer sustainable. The subsequent divorce filing underscored the severity of the situation, but it also raised new questions. What other secrets might have been lurking beneath the surface? How long had this double life been maintained? And what else would Nicole discover in the days and weeks that followed? This chapter of the story, the arrest that shattered the illusion, was only the beginning. It set the stage for the deeper revelations, the specific details of Keith Urban's alleged secret communications, and the emotional fallout that would follow. For Nicole, the path forward was fraught with uncertainty, but the catalyst had already occurred. The legal event that might have seemed routine to outsiders had transformed into a prism revealing hidden truths, a spark igniting the unraveling of a marriage once considered perfect. And as the legal documents were filed and the media began to pick up the story, one question loomed larger than any other. How much of Keith Urban's private life had remained hidden, and could Nicole ever truly know the full extent of the double life she had allegedly uncovered? But what she discovered next, beyond the headlines, beyond the court filings, beyond the public eye, would expose details far more shocking than anyone could have imagined. The man she married, or the man she thought she married. That distinction would soon define Nicole Kidman's life. It is one thing to sense tension, to notice minor inconsistencies in a partner's behavior. It is another to discover, with undeniable clarity, that the person you trusted has allegedly been living a double life, a life parallel to the one you believed you shared. This was the reality Nicole reportedly faced after the arrest, a revelation that changed her perception of everything she had built with Keith Urban. A double life is rarely simple. It is rarely dramatic in the way movies portray. Often, it is subtle, insidious, and deeply personal. Reports suggest that Keith's alleged double life involved private communications that Nicole had no knowledge of, secret messages, hidden social media accounts, and ongoing emotional connections with women outside the marriage. These were not casual interactions. They were sustained, covert relationships maintained under the guise of normalcy. Each message, each hidden account, each late-night conversation added a layer to the web of secrecy Nicole was only beginning to untangle. Nicole's shock reportedly came not just from discovering these hidden communications, but from the realization that the emotional bond they represented was real. While there may not have been physical betrayal, the emotional engagement is often just as damaging, if not more so. Emotional infidelity, experts agree, can erode trust faster than almost any other form of deception because it represents a private investment of time, energy, and intimacy that should belong to the partnership. Nicole allegedly recognized this immediately. It wasn't about who had been kissed or what had been physically done. It was about the very essence of trust, the intimacy of connection that had been misdirected. Friends of Nicole describe her as feeling blindsided, not only by the existence of these private communications, but by their scale and persistence. Weeks, months, perhaps even years of interactions that she had no idea existed. The idea that a spouse could maintain such a parallel life for so long challenges everything a person believes about love, loyalty, and intimacy. It forces a confrontation with questions most people never want to ask. Could I have missed the signs? Could I have been blind? How well do we really know the person we love? The alleged double life reportedly extended beyond simple messaging. It included covert social media profiles, accounts that existed solely to communicate without detection, and the cultivation of relationships that appeared to exist outside Nicole's awareness. The stakes of discovery were enormous. To Nicole, the realization must have been visceral. The world she had believed in, the stable home, the loving husband, the family milestones, was, in part, a carefully maintained illusion. It is worth considering the psychological impact of such a discovery. Emotional betrayal can induce feelings of helplessness, shock, and profound sadness. Nicole, a woman who has faced public scrutiny for decades, was reportedly experiencing a deeply personal violation that no fame or experience could inoculate her against. How do you reconcile 17 years of partnership with a reality in which your spouse has been dividing his attention, time, and emotional energy elsewhere? How do you process a life in which the person you trusted has been partially living another existence, parallel to the one you thought you shared? This alleged double life reportedly also involved careful curation. Sources claim that Keith maintained a level of discretion that allowed him to compartmentalize, keeping his professional and public persona completely separate from the private communications and interactions that constituted the double life. For Nicole, the complexity of these hidden layers may have been the most shocking element. Not just the existence of secrets, but the sophistication and deliberate effort required to maintain them over time. Friends and insiders suggest that Nicole began to piece together other moments, seemingly innocuous or easily explained at the time, that suddenly made sense in the context of this double life. Absences during family events, late-night calls that seemed unremarkable, unexplained travel, or sudden bursts of attention towards certain friends or acquaintances. Individually, these moments could have been dismissed. Collectively, they painted a picture of deception carefully hidden in plain sight. What is particularly striking about emotional betrayal is its ripple effect. The trust between partners is the foundation upon which all other elements of a marriage rest: communication, intimacy, collaboration, co-parenting, and shared goals. Once that foundation is questioned, every other element comes under scrutiny. Nicole's response, according to sources, was immediate and decisive. She reportedly began a meticulous process of discovery, seeking evidence, understanding scope, and, ultimately, determining the steps she would need to take to protect herself and her children. Consider for a moment the implications for their two daughters, 17 and 14. How does a parent navigate the emotional fallout of a spouse's alleged double life, while also shielding teenagers from pain? According to those close to Nicole, she prioritized their well-being, striving to maintain stability in their daily lives even as she confronted the emotional and legal challenges herself. Every decision, from legal action to private conversations, was reportedly informed by the dual goal of preserving family integrity and addressing personal betrayal. The alleged scope of Keith's double life also raises questions about perception and deception. How does someone maintain the public image of a devoted husband while simultaneously cultivating secret, emotionally charged relationships elsewhere? What does this say about the limits of observation, the assumptions of intimacy, and the hidden complexities of human behavior? Nicole's alleged shock was compounded not only by the betrayal itself, but by the realization that appearances, even when consistent over 17 years, can be deceiving. Friends and insiders indicate that the emotional weight of discovery was staggering. Nicole reportedly described feeling as though she had been living beside a stranger. Every private moment, every shared memory, every seemingly intimate conversation became tinged with doubt. Could it be trusted? Was it authentic? Or was it part of the carefully maintained dual existence she had only just begun to uncover? The line between truth and deception blurred, leaving her to navigate a maze of emotional uncertainty. Even beyond the private sphere, the implications for Nicole's professional life were substantial. Public figures live under constant observation. Personal revelations inevitably become topics of public discussion. The arrest, the alleged double life, and the subsequent divorce filing were not isolated events. They were intertwined with media coverage, fan speculation, and the broader cultural conversation about fidelity, trust, and the hidden lives of celebrities. Nicole's challenge was to navigate this storm while maintaining dignity, protecting her children, and reclaiming control over her narrative. Ultimately, the alleged double life represents more than a collection of secret communications or hidden profiles. It symbolizes the fracture between public perception and private reality, between love as performed and love as experienced. For Nicole, the alleged discovery of this parallel existence may have been as much about self-realization as it was about betrayal. It forced her to confront not only Keith Urban's alleged secrets, but also her own assumptions, judgments, and understanding of intimacy. And yet, even with all that had been revealed, there were deeper layers still waiting to be uncovered. Hidden messages, emotional entanglements, and private behaviors that had previously escaped notice would later emerge as Nicole continued to untangle the web of secrecy surrounding her marriage. Each revelation brought clarity, but also pain, reinforcing the notion that the life she thought she knew had been partially constructed around hidden truths. The alleged double life was more than a scandal. It was a lens through which Nicole began to reevaluate every facet of her life: her marriage, her family, her trust, and even her understanding of love. And as she navigated this difficult terrain, one question loomed above all others. What else had remained hidden? What further revelations awaited? And could the truth ever be fully reconciled with the life she had lived beside a man who had maintained secrets for years? But what she discovered next, the private messaging, the hidden accounts, and the emotional affairs, would reveal depths of deception that no one anticipated, setting the stage for heartbreak, confrontation, and decisions that would forever alter her world. It wasn't physical. It wasn't overt. But the betrayal, Nicole Kidman reportedly realized, cut just as deeply. Emotional affairs, secret messaging, covert communication. These were the instruments of a hidden life that allegedly unraveled the trust she had placed in Keith Urban. Imagine discovering that the intimacy you believed was shared exclusively between two people had, in fact, been partially diverted elsewhere. Every late-night text, every private message, every hidden social media interaction suddenly carried the weight of deception. According to sources close to Nicole, the discovery began subtly. Small inconsistencies, minor unexplained behaviors, fleeting interactions that seemed innocent at the time. All of them began to take on new significance once the arrest brought everything into sharp focus. Friends suggest that Nicole started noticing patterns, conversations with certain contacts, time spent online that didn't match her husband's explanation, and a quiet defensiveness over personal devices. Individually, these may have seemed trivial. Collectively, they painted a picture that was difficult to ignore. The alleged emotional affairs were reportedly conducted with meticulous discretion. Keith Urban, according to insiders, allegedly maintained private messaging threads with multiple women, threads that were flirtatious, intimate, and ongoing over extended periods. These interactions were not public. They existed in spaces Nicole had no access to, hidden from view but alive with energy and emotion. It is alleged that these were not brief exchanges but sustained relationships, maintained with a level of secrecy that required careful planning and attention. The emotional stakes of such affairs are profound. Unlike physical infidelity, which can sometimes be objectively proven, emotional betrayal is experienced in a different realm. It is felt in the heart, the mind, and the soul. Nicole, reportedly confronted with the evidence of these private emotional connections, felt the sting of intimacy redirected elsewhere. Friends say she described it as a violation of trust, a distortion of reality that left her questioning every shared moment, every expression of affection, every promise ever made. Imagine for a moment the sense of disbelief. For 17 years, Nicole and Keith had navigated life together, raising 2 daughters, managing high-profile careers, and sustaining a marriage under the relentless scrutiny of the public eye. Then, suddenly, one discovers that the emotional energy invested in the marriage had been, at least in part, shared elsewhere. How does one reconcile love with secrecy, affection with duplicity? According to sources, Nicole wrestled with exactly these questions, confronting a mixture of grief, anger, and disbelief. The alleged private messaging was more than casual flirting. Friends report that it included extended conversations, intimate exchanges of thoughts and feelings, and interactions that created a sense of emotional closeness with others outside the marriage. For Nicole, this realization was particularly painful. It wasn't a matter of physical boundaries being crossed. It was the emotional connection, the unseen intimacy, that constituted betrayal. It wasn't physical, one insider allegedly explained, but it was betrayal all the same. Beyond the messaging itself, Nicole reportedly discovered hidden social media accounts, profiles created to communicate without detection. These accounts allowed Keith to maintain a presence in these relationships while avoiding scrutiny. In a world where digital footprints are nearly impossible to erase, the deliberate creation of hidden spaces speaks to the planning and intent behind the alleged double life. For Nicole, uncovering these accounts reportedly brought both clarity and anguish, a confirmation of the suspicions she had begun to form, but also a vivid reminder of the trust that had been broken. Emotional affairs have a ripple effect. They infiltrate the very foundation of a marriage, affecting communication, intimacy, and daily interactions. Nicole's friends suggest she began revisiting years of shared experiences through the lens of this discovery. Conversations that had seemed ordinary, moments of affection that had felt genuine. They now carried undertones of deception, shadows that were impossible to ignore. Each memory became intertwined with doubt, forcing Nicole to reconsider the nature of her marriage and the authenticity of the emotional connection she had believed in for nearly 2 decades. The alleged private messaging also raises questions about human behavior and the complexity of secrecy. How does someone maintain a public life of devotion while simultaneously nurturing private relationships elsewhere? Sources suggest that Keith's ability to compartmentalize allowed him to navigate both realms for years without detection. Yet this compartmentalization, while efficient, ultimately created the conditions for profound emotional fallout once revealed. Nicole, confronted with the reality of these hidden communications, reportedly experienced a mix of shock, hurt, and determination to reclaim control of her life. It is also worth noting the emotional intelligence required to maintain such hidden affairs. While some might interpret them as opportunistic or reckless, the alleged covert nature of Keith's communications indicates careful planning. Nicole, reportedly, recognized both the skill and the intent behind the secrecy, further intensifying the sense of betrayal. The realization that this was not an isolated incident, but a sustained pattern made the emotional impact all the more acute. For Nicole's daughters, the consequences of these revelations were profound. How do parents shield children from betrayal of this magnitude? Friends indicate that Nicole prioritized protecting their emotional well-being, striving to maintain stability and continuity in their lives even as she confronted the reality of Keith's alleged private affairs. Every decision, from family arrangements to legal consultations, was reportedly made with the dual purpose of protecting the children and addressing the personal consequences of deception. Public reaction, as expected, was intense. Headlines speculated about the nature of the alleged double life, fueling curiosity and debate among fans and media alike. Yet for Nicole, the public chatter was secondary to the deeply personal emotional work she was undertaking. The heartbreak, the questioning of trust, and the processing of betrayal were private matters, unfolding in real time and with real consequences for her family. Ultimately, the private messaging and emotional affairs reportedly represented more than a breach of marital trust. They were evidence of a hidden life, a set of choices and behaviors maintained with deliberate secrecy. For Nicole, understanding this required not only confronting Keith's alleged actions, but also reconciling them with her own perceptions, expectations, and assumptions about marriage, loyalty, and intimacy. And even as she processed the implications of these emotional betrayals, there were further revelations awaiting her, details and dimensions of Keith Urban's alleged secret life that would continue to unfold, adding layers of complexity, heartbreak, and shock to a story that had already altered the course of her personal life. What Nicole uncovered next. The full scope of these secret communications, their emotional depth, and the hidden connections that extended beyond mere messages, would push her into a confrontation with truths that no one, not even a superstar actress accustomed to scrutiny and control, could have anticipated. Two daughters, 17 and 14. A household that, to the outside world, appeared serene, loving, and carefully curated. But behind the closed doors of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's home, the alleged revelations of a hidden life reportedly began to fracture the family in ways the public could not see. How do you maintain normalcy for teenagers when the very foundation of their parents' relationship is being questioned? How do you explain betrayal, secrecy, and emotional deception to children whose world is tightly intertwined with both parents? These were the stakes Nicole reportedly faced as the double life came to light. Family life for Nicole and Keith had long been portrayed as idyllic. Vacations captured on social media, birthday parties, school events, and public outings painted a picture of stability. For years, fans admired the couple for managing fame while raising children, projecting an image of harmony that seemed almost aspirational. Yet insiders claimed that, behind the carefully maintained facade, there were undercurrents of tension, subtle signs of strain, and moments of private discord that had been overlooked, or perhaps intentionally ignored. According to sources, Nicole became acutely aware of the hidden rift after the arrest and the subsequent discovery of Keith's alleged emotional affairs. What had seemed minor, the occasional unexplained absence, a fleeting look of distraction, a defensive response over phone usage, suddenly gained weight. Nicole reportedly began to piece together years of behavior that, in hindsight, suggested a separation between public performance and private reality. The emotional toll of this realization was compounded by her responsibilities as a parent. How could she navigate her own shock while simultaneously maintaining stability for her daughters? Teenagers are particularly perceptive. At 17 and 14, children are attuned to subtle cues, tone of voice, body language, unexplained silences. Friends suggest that Nicole was keenly aware of the potential impact the alleged betrayal could have on her daughter's perception of trust, relationships, and family. She reportedly took deliberate steps to shield them from the brunt of the emotional fallout, maintaining routines, attending school events, and providing reassurance, even as she grappled privately with the enormity of the revelations. The alleged hidden rift went beyond emotional affairs. It reportedly infiltrated the very dynamics of daily family life. Mealtimes, weekend plans, and private conversations were no longer entirely straightforward. Every interaction had the potential to carry the weight of doubt. For Nicole, the challenge was balancing authenticity with protection, acknowledging the disruption in her own life, while providing her daughters with the sense of security they needed. Friends and insiders also suggest that the children, despite their age and maturity, were affected by the subtle shifts in household energy. The warmth that had long defined family interactions reportedly became tinged with tension and uncertainty. Nicole, understanding the psychological impact, allegedly worked to compartmentalize her own emotional processing, ensuring that her daughter's routines remained as undisturbed as possible. Yet the knowledge of betrayal, even if partially shielded from view, is difficult to contain within a home where trust has been fractured. The interplay between public perception and private reality was particularly acute for Nicole. In Hollywood, her life was constantly under scrutiny. Every family photo, every public appearance, every red carpet moment was dissected by fans, media, and gossip outlets. The alleged revelations of a double life made this scrutiny even more intense. Nicole reportedly faced the dual burden of managing her own emotional response while protecting her daughters from both the private impact of betrayal and the public fascination that inevitably followed. Consider the emotional complexity of this scenario. Parents are expected to be pillars of stability, sources of guidance, and protection. Yet when a parent experiences betrayal, secrecy, and deception at the hands of a spouse, the ability to maintain that stability becomes extraordinarily difficult. Nicole's alleged response was both immediate and methodical. She sought to understand the scope of the deception, protect her children's emotional well-being, and begin the difficult process of redefining family life in the wake of revelations that threatened to upend everything. Even the smallest details of daily life reportedly became points of reflection and recalibration. Decisions about schooling, extracurricular activities, and weekend plans were all potentially colored by the hidden rift. Nicole, according to insiders, was hyper-aware of the impact that even minor disruptions could have on her daughter's sense of security. Every choice carried emotional weight. Every interaction became an exercise in reassurance, and every moment of normalcy was fiercely protected. The alleged breach of trust also forced Nicole to confront broader questions about family identity and legacy. 17 years of marriage, milestones shared, and traditions maintained suddenly took on new meaning under the shadow of secrecy. How much of the family's shared history had been authentic? How much had been influenced or overshadowed by the hidden aspects of Keith's life? These questions, while difficult, were reportedly central to Nicole's internal reckoning. Friends note that Nicole approached the situation with a combination of emotional intelligence, strategy, and protective instinct. She reportedly communicated with trusted advisors, legal counsel, and close friends to navigate the dual challenges of personal betrayal and family stability. Every step was reportedly measured to minimize disruption for her daughters while addressing the alleged deception in a responsible and deliberate manner. Despite these efforts, the impact of emotional betrayal on the family unit cannot be entirely contained. Trust, once fractured, ripples outward, affecting interactions, perceptions, and relationships. For Nicole's daughters, the alleged double life of their father may have introduced confusion, questions about love and loyalty, and a need for reassurance that was unprecedented in their experience. Nicole's reportedly proactive approach, maintaining routines, emphasizing transparency where appropriate, and reinforcing stability, was a critical factor in mitigating the immediate emotional fallout. And yet, the hidden rift was not solely about emotional betrayal. Sources suggest that the alleged secrecy extended into other areas: financial decisions, private communications, and even aspects of professional life that intersected with family dynamics. Each layer of concealment added complexity, requiring Nicole to navigate not only personal grief, but also logistical and practical challenges that affected her daughters' daily lives. For Nicole, the ultimate challenge was navigating the tension between personal heartbreak and parental responsibility. Protecting her children while processing betrayal, deciding on the appropriate legal and emotional response, and managing public scrutiny required resilience and strategy. Friends note that she approached these challenges with deliberate care, ensuring that the immediate needs of her daughters were prioritized even as she confronted the larger scope of the alleged double life. In many ways, the hidden rift underscored a central truth about trust, intimacy, and family life. Appearances can be deceiving, and even the most stable families may harbor hidden complexities. Nicole's alleged discovery of Keith's secret communications and emotional engagements forced her to reconcile years of shared experiences with the reality of betrayal, all while maintaining a protective, nurturing environment for her daughters. And as Nicole navigated these delicate dynamics, the larger story continued to unfold. The messages, the hidden accounts, and the emotional entanglements that had gone unnoticed for years would continue to reveal themselves. Each revelation added layers of complexity, reshaping the family's understanding of the past and influencing decisions about the future. But the consequences of this hidden rift were far from over. What Nicole would uncover next, the scope of secret associations, the depth of hidden emotional connections, and the choices Keith had made, would push the story of her marriage and family into territory that no one could have anticipated. Hollywood thrives on perception, on image, on the story that is told to the world. For Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban, the public had always seen a marriage that appeared enviable, elegant, devoted, and seemingly impervious to the pressures of fame. But when news of their separation broke on September 29th, the world reacted with shock, disbelief, and fascination. Fans, tabloids, and social media erupted in speculation. What was once private became public, and Nicole's alleged discovery of Keith's double life now became a matter of collective scrutiny. The initial headlines were dramatic, if vague. Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban split after 17 years of marriage, read one. Hollywood shock. Kidman's marriage in crisis, blared another. The public had no knowledge of the alleged emotional betrayals, private messaging, or hidden social accounts. All they knew was that a marriage once celebrated as a model union was now fractured, and the details, tantalizingly, were scarce. Curiosity drove attention. Millions of fans clicked, commented, and shared every snippet, hungry for insight into the personal lives of two of the entertainment world's brightest stars. Social media became a storm of reactions. Some fans expressed shock and sadness. How could this happen to such a beautiful couple? Read one comment. Others speculated about the reasons, attempting to connect dots based on appearances and past public statements. Maybe fame and touring kept them apart, suggested another. Yet some took a more cynical view, questioning the authenticity of the marriage altogether. The diversity of reactions highlighted a central truth. The public's fascination with celebrity relationships is intense, immediate, and often relentless. The viral nature of these reactions amplified the pressure on Nicole. While she grappled privately with the alleged betrayal, the world outside was forming narratives, passing judgment, and constructing versions of events that may not have reflected reality. Friends reportedly observed that Nicole remained intensely focused on her family and her own emotional processing, refusing to let the public narrative dictate her private actions. Yet the juxtaposition of private pain and public speculation added layers of complexity to an already fraught situation. Fans dissected images, videos, and past interviews, searching for signs that might indicate trouble. They examined award show appearances, Instagram posts, and vacation photos, attempting to read between the lines. Every smile, every handhold, every subtle glance was scrutinized. In a world where perception is often reality, Nicole's private anguish became subject to public interpretation, turning personal heartbreak into communal speculation. The media, as expected, fueled this frenzy. Tabloids and entertainment outlets circulated headlines implying scandal, betrayal, and secrets. Reports speculated on the alleged double life, emotional affairs, and private messaging that had supposedly gone unnoticed for years. Some coverage was careful, citing unnamed sources. Other coverage was sensational, leaning into dramatic narrative. For Nicole, navigating this barrage of attention required careful management of both personal and family matters while ensuring the story of her daughter's well-being remained protected. The public's reaction was not just about curiosity, it was about identification. Fans projected their own experiences, hopes, and fears onto the story. Relationships, trust, and betrayal are universal themes, and the revelation of a marriage in crisis triggered intense emotional engagement. Some expressed sympathy for Nicole, viewing her as the wronged party. Others expressed disbelief or criticism of Keith. The multiplicity of reactions illustrates the intense scrutiny celebrities face, where private challenges are endlessly dissected and debated in a public forum. Nicole reportedly responded to this media storm with a combination of restraint and focus. She understood that every action, every statement, could be amplified, misinterpreted, or weaponized in the public sphere. Friends indicate that she maintained a deliberate distance from the media frenzy, prioritizing emotional stability and family protection over public commentary. The challenge was enormous. Balancing personal grief, parental responsibility, and public perception is a task that few could navigate without immense fortitude. The public's fascination also highlighted the broader implications of celebrity culture. The allure of Nicole Kidman and Keith Urban's marriage was built on more than fame. It was built on admiration for what seemed like a perfect partnership. When that image fractured, the intensity of public reaction reflected both the idealization of the couple and the emotional investment of fans in their narrative. Suddenly, the story of private betrayal became a shared spectacle, analyzed, dissected, and debated by millions worldwide. Even within the fanbase, reactions were polarized. Some supporters of Nicole expressed unwavering loyalty, sharing messages of encouragement and empathy. Others speculated about the reasons behind the split, constructing theories that ranged from professional stress to long-term deception. The public dialogue became a mirror, reflecting society's fascination with infidelity, secrecy, and emotional betrayal. It underscored the degree to which celebrity lives are intertwined with cultural expectations, curiosity, and judgment. Beyond social media, friends and insiders note that the immediate response of Nicole's inner circle was protective and strategic. They sought to shield her from the full brunt of public speculation while providing emotional support and guidance. This private network reportedly played a critical role in maintaining her stability during the days immediately following the separation announcement. In contrast, the public's perception was largely shaped by headlines, social media, and viral commentary, which often emphasized drama over nuance. The juxtaposition of private pain and public fascination created a unique emotional environment. Nicole, confronting alleged emotional betrayal and a hidden double life, simultaneously faced a global audience eager to analyze, critique, and interpret her experiences. Every decision, legal, personal, or familial, was filtered through the lens of public perception, amplifying stress and complicating the process of navigating personal grief. And yet, despite the intensity of the public's reaction, insiders suggest that Nicole remained resolute. The well-being of her daughters, the protection of her privacy, and the careful management of her emotional state became guiding priorities. Public speculation, while relentless, was secondary to the very real challenges she faced in addressing the alleged emotional affairs, hidden communications, and complex family dynamics at the center of her personal life. Even as fans reacted with shock, sympathy, and debate, Nicole reportedly focused on clarity. She began to map out the scope of the alleged deception, assess the impact on her family, and plan the steps necessary to secure both emotional and legal protection. The public may have seen headlines, viral speculation, and dramatic narratives, but the truth, as insiders describe it, was far more complex, layered, and emotionally charged than any article or tweet could capture. The reaction of fans, in many ways, underscored the pressures inherent in celebrity life. In a world where personal experiences are magnified and scrutinized, betrayal becomes not only a private challenge, but a public spectacle. Nicole's situation exemplified this tension. The discovery of a double life, emotional affairs, and hidden communications was intensely personal, yet it unfolded under the watchful gaze of millions. And as the public absorbed the initial headlines, the story was only beginning. The arrest, the alleged double life, and the emotional betrayals were catalysts for further revelations, layers of private interactions and hidden behaviors that would continue to emerge. What the fans saw in flashes of headlines and viral speculation was only a fragment of the truth, leaving Nicole to navigate the next stages of her journey with courage, discretion, and resilience. But while the world debated, speculated, and reacted, the private reality for Nicole was far more complex. And what she discovered next about Keith Urban's secret associations would deepen the shock, exposing dimensions of his life previously unknown even to those closest to the family. Who was Keith Urban really spending time with, and why did Nicole Kidman never know? That question, reportedly, haunted Nicole in the wake of the alleged revelations of his double life. While public appearances suggested a devoted husband, private interactions hinted at connections she had never been aware of, associations that, according to insiders, carried the potential to undermine trust, family stability, and the carefully curated image of their marriage. For 17 years, Nicole and Keith had maintained a life that balanced Hollywood glamour with family priorities. Vacations, award ceremonies, and professional commitments filled their calendar, leaving little room for scrutiny of every interaction. Yet beneath this schedule, sources claim Keith cultivated relationships and associations outside the scope of Nicole's awareness. Friends and insiders describe these as shadow networks, circles of contacts that existed quietly, away from public view, but which played a role in the alleged double life that Nicole would eventually confront. The nature of these associations reportedly varied. Some involved professional connections, longtime acquaintances from the music industry, or friends introduced through touring and recording commitments. Others, more personal, allegedly included individuals with whom Keith shared private, sometimes intimate communications. These connections were allegedly conducted with discretion, allowing Keith to compartmentalize his life in ways that kept Nicole and the public unaware of their scope or significance. It is said that Nicole, upon discovering the extent of these secret associations, felt a mixture of betrayal and disbelief. The very idea that someone could maintain relationships outside the knowledge of a spouse, particularly when those connections involved emotional engagement or secrecy, challenges fundamental notions of trust. Nicole reportedly began to question not only the nature of these interactions, but also how long they had been maintained and what motivations lay behind them. Friends close to Nicole describe her process of discovery as meticulous. She began piecing together timelines, conversations, and patterns of behavior that suggested more than casual friendship. Late-night messages, unexplained meetings, and absences that had previously seemed inconsequential suddenly gained weight. Each revelation deepened the sense of shock and highlighted the complexity of Keith's alleged secret associations. The emotional impact, insiders say, was profound. To realize that a spouse, someone with whom you have shared nearly 2 decades of life, raised children, and navigated public scrutiny, might be investing emotional energy in hidden relationships is destabilizing. It forces a reassessment of the past, every shared experience, and every decision made in the context of a partnership now tainted by secrecy. Nicole, according to sources, felt blindsided by the breadth and depth of these alleged hidden connections. Some associations reportedly extended into personal realms that Nicole never suspected. Private conversations, shared confidences, and sustained attention allegedly demonstrated that Keith's connections were more than incidental. They involved deliberate emotional investment. Friends suggest Nicole struggled to reconcile the man she had known publicly with the private behaviors she was uncovering, a conflict that compounded the emotional weight of the alleged betrayal. These secret associations, it is said, were carefully maintained. Keith allegedly created opportunities for interaction that would remain unnoticed, using discretion to avoid detection by Nicole, the media, and even professional associates. The deliberate nature of these efforts reportedly intensified Nicole's sense of betrayal. It was not the existence of relationships in isolation, but the conscious concealment, the intent to keep these connections hidden, that magnified the emotional impact. The implications for family dynamics were significant. Nicole reportedly considered not only the personal betrayal, but also the potential influence on her daughters, ages 17 and 14. The discovery of these associations could have exposed them to confusion, mistrust, or hurt. Friends suggest she approached this challenge with deliberate care, working to maintain stability, ensure emotional safety, and protect her children from the fallout while addressing the alleged deception with clarity and decisiveness. Public speculation, unsurprisingly, followed. Fans and media outlets attempted to parse the implications of these secret associations. Were they harmless friendships? Emotional entanglements? Signals of a broader hidden life? Headlines and social media commentary often veered into sensationalism, amplifying the story while sometimes obscuring the nuance of Nicole's private experience. For her, however, the reality was intensely personal, far removed from the commentary of outsiders. The secret associations reportedly also had professional dimensions. Keith's touring schedule, recording commitments, and interactions within the music industry provided cover and opportunity for these connections to persist unnoticed. While professional collaboration is normal, insiders allege that some of these relationships had personal undertones, creating tension and uncertainty that Nicole only began to uncover after the arrest triggered broader revelations. Emotional betrayal, compounded by the knowledge of hidden networks, represents a unique challenge. It's not just about physical infidelity. It's about the redirection of emotional energy, the private sharing of attention and care that was expected to belong exclusively to the marriage. Nicole, according to friends, grappled with this reality with a mix of determination, heartbreak, and protective instinct, focusing on both understanding the scope of the deception and safeguarding her family from its ripple effects. Consider the psychological strain. To live for years believing in a shared life of trust and intimacy, only to discover networks of secret relationships, is destabilizing. It calls into question judgment, perception, and the authenticity of past experiences. Friends suggest Nicole experienced waves of disbelief, anger, and sorrow, emotions heightened by the fact that these associations were allegedly deliberate and sustained over time. The revelations about Keith's secret associations also shaped Nicole's next steps. Legal counsel, family advisors, and close confidants were reportedly engaged to help navigate the complexities of emotional betrayal, family protection, and public scrutiny. Each decision, from divorce filings to personal boundaries, was informed by the understanding that these hidden networks had consequences far beyond individual interactions. They affected family stability, trust, and Nicole's sense of personal security. And yet, even as she confronted these hidden associations, the story was far from complete. While the networks themselves were alarming, the emotional impact, the secret communications, and the private messages allegedly intertwined with these associations revealed dimensions of Keith's double life that Nicole had not yet fully understood. Each layer uncovered added complexity, heartbreak, and a deeper appreciation for the magnitude of the betrayal. What Nicole would discover next, the specific content of the secret communications, the depth of emotional entanglement, and the hidden patterns of interaction, would push the narrative into even more profound territory, revealing truths that reshaped her understanding of her marriage, her family, and the man she thought she knew. And those revelations, it seems,